everybody. How are you? Hungry? A little bit? Well, we already know as developers we like to learn, right? In my case, I have one thing to mention. I'm not a mobile developer. In fact, all my life I've been working with the dark side of JavaScript. So what's going on? What happened? Especially during my last years, I have to get involved more with product, and I really like to create and keep learning. So I was in the middle of a situation that I have actually to get involved with mobile. And then suddenly I discovered Flutter. So that's why I want to share with you my experience and how I became a mobile developer with Flutter and Firebase. As I mentioned before, we are developers. We have an awesome career that we're not going to stop learning. We have a lot of new technologies going on around. Let me know, like I've been working with JavaScript, so every time that I wake up, you have a new framework. And actually, you have a lot of challenges. But during your career, most of the time, you want to pick one and be an expert regarding that technology. So in my case, I was in a position to start my own business, create my own product, and actually, it was mandatory for me to start making decisions regarding technology. I've been working with frameworks like AngularJS, React, but then one of my clients said, Laura, do you know how to do the same thing that you're doing now with mobile? And I was like, let me see. And that moment, I was playing around with Android, but I'm not an Android developer. I have a few friends that can help me, of course, but in that moment, you need time, right? Especially if you need to learn something. Another thing that you have to keep in mind is which platform are you going to develop, Android or iOS, depending on which market are you in. I'm from Argentina, so yeah, super far away. And in that part of the planet, we use Android most of the time. But if you're going to create something and your client is, for example, from the US, you have to do something with iOS, maybe using Swift. Why not? At that moment, I was trying to make a decision if I will invest into learn a new technology. I don't have any problems. I really like it. But at that moment, I need to make new clients. I need to prototype new creations. So at that moment also, I was really passionate about Firebase. So why not combine both, Firebase and mobile development? One other thing that I like to mention, how many of you are mobile developers? How many of you not, like me? OK, so one other thing that we have to keep in mind is right now everything is about AI. If you've been connected with Google I/O, the last news is about AI. But years before, like 2 or 3 years, was mobile first. So we still have this market on demand that we need to create apps. Most of our users needs to use the same thing that as we are using in the web, but apps. So at that moment, I was trying to check. We have different options, right? We can use Kotlin, pretty soft. I like Kotlin. React Native. I was more familiar with JavaScript, so I was like, why not? And then also we have iOS. If you're going to use iOS, you can use Swift. And also, you can mix it with Firebase, all this kind of stuff. But then I saw Flutter. Flutter, for me, it was a really nice solution. In my case, last year, I was trying to do some prototypes for this client. And at that moment, I was checking all the news in Google I/O, and voila, we have Flutter. So what is Flutter, and what we have behind Flutter? So it's basically a mobile SDK. One thing that I was trying to keep in mind is, well, Laura, you're going to learn a new language. Basically, Flutter is made with Dart. Dart is a super different thing than JavaScript, as you maybe already know. And I was a little bit afraid and trying to check which kind of resources we have to start using Flutter. First of all, Flutter is cross-platform. That's one of the things that it helped me to make a big decision. And also, in terms of design, it's super simple to use. My strong skills are not that much with design, so I really like to work with things that make these kind of things easier. And let's see which kind of challenges I was still having. We need, as developers, high-quality apps, right? Because sometimes if we use a cross-platform to develop our app, basically, sometimes we can lose quality or performance, OK? Second, UI, right? We need to keep a native UI with us. Sometimes if we don't use the right tool, it can look a little bit not the same as even using a native language. Or in my case, I was like, OK, maybe I should do something responsive or whatever. No, that's not the case. So basically, Flutter is going to combine both worlds. It's going to have performance. It's going to help me to create nice UIs, right? And also, let's see how actually we can work with Firebase to use Flutter on Firebase. One of the things that you have to mention, well, I've been working with JavaScript since a long time, so it means that I've been working, for example, with things like jQuery. If you're not old enough here, maybe, or somebody, I know that somebody here is still using jQuery. Everybody likes it. And basically, when I've started to work around with Flutter, I realized, OK, there are widgets everywhere. Basically, everything is a widget. So let's see how it works. First of all, we have framework, Dart. Everything is built in Dart. We have two different kinds of design. If you're going to work with Android, you're going to work with material design. So in my case also, it was pretty familiar. I've been working with Angular, and I use Material Angular, so I was like, OK, this is familiar for me too. Second, actually, if you still need to work with iOS, there is Cupertino behind that you can use it and create a really native UI. Choosing Material or Cupertino, you can start creating widgets. We're going to see how we can create widgets, how we can connect with Firebase, and actually, which kind of widgets we have, right? And these kind of widgets are not only just to create nice UI. The thing is that we can actually use animations and gestures, or even 3D animations. Second, we have a Flutter app. So basically, we can use Flutter, and then as it's cross-platform, we can use it with iOS or Android, same thing. One of the things that we have to keep in mind, of course, is we have a flexible toolkit, native iOS and Android. But in my case, one of the things that I like to share with you is my experience is this kind of tool is not like it's going to replace native or something like that. It's not like better than other or something like that. It's still better. So we still have to keep in mind a few things. Sorry, I've been eating a lot of baklava here and having a lot of dinner outside, so maybe that's the reason. And as a web developer, I like things most of the time that are fast, that are making me have a really high development environment to create my code. And one of the things that I remember when I started to work with Android is, OK, I need to debug my Android app. OK, I want to have an app, and then wake me up when that finishes, right? Well, that's one thing. The other thing is the environment. And I was like, I'm not sure if I want to be in the mobile world. And with Flutter, basically, after I realized that I had the right environment to work with Flutter, basically, I can use something that, for example, is called hot reload. I can change a few things live, and I don't have to debug my application again, or compile my application again, and then go to sleep, and then go back. So basically, yes, I have less free time, but things are quickly. And if I want to do a lot of new changes, and in this case, for example, we're going to use Firebase, we can see these changes live. Again, one of the things that I really enjoy most is the UI. Basically, we are going to create a widget that is going to be a parent of our widgets, and then everything is going to be like a tree. That's something for me that it was really useful. Once that you realize that in Flutter, most of the cases are widgets, it's going to start making sense. So let's see in terms of performance. Again, for me, it's not going to replace Android or iOS native. You still need to check things regarding performance, especially if you're going to use it with Firebase. The Firebase plugins are still with beta. So what I'm trying to mention is try to go outside, test the features that we already have, and then wait if these plugins are going to be live soon. I think so. And then try to make some feedback and create the community. That's one of the things that I like to mention. So basically, these kind of UIs are going to help us to have a better UX for our users, and of course, more clients that are happy. One of the things that I like to check every time that I'm going to discover a new technology is which kind of products are you using Flutter, or how is the community? That's another thing that we're going to talk later. So one of the examples that you can see outside is Hamilton. Hamilton, it was one of the most popular Broadway musicals in the US. So basically, they use Flutter to create their app, and also Firebase. That's the part that I like most. Hamilton is using a UI that is pretty sweet. You can actually check it. And it's one of the examples that you have to keep in mind in terms of decisions if your application is going to worth it to do it with Flutter. These kind of apps are apps that maybe can be temporary. Hamilton is not going to be there forever, for example, right? And you have to check if your app is going to scale, for example. Hamilton is always going to have the same actors most of the time. Of course, you can change it, but it's not going to change in terms of numbers, right? Also, we're not going to require a lot of performance in terms of checking new data and everything. So Flutter, it goes well with this. Again, how we can combine Flutter with another tools. And that's the other part that I was feeling, OK, I can start using Flutter. In my case, I've been working around Android Studio, but I was super happy when actually I can use it with Visual Studio Code. I don't know how many of you are already using this, but you know, if you're a developer and you always use your stuff, it's like, OK, you like new changes, you like to learn something new, but at the same time, you like your tools, right? It's like the same as I have a friend that is still using VI or Linux to do all his code, and it's completely fine. I respect him. But I like to use Visual Studio Code. So once that you install all the requirements in Visual Studio Code, basically it's even easier to start interacting with Dart. So Not only Visual Studio Code. Again, I've been working most of the time with JavaScript. I've been using Angular material. Super easy. So I can combine both worlds. And the other one, of course, is Firebase. So let's see what can we do actually with Firebase and Flutter. How many of you are already using Firebase? Cool, I like those hands. So let's see, if you never use Firebase, Firebase is a platform for developers. It has different features. So you can use all the features or not. It can work with web, iOS, or Android. In my case, I've been using most of the time with Android and web. And in the case of web and Android or iOS, you have things like push notifications, authentication, and something that is called Cloud Firestore. And we're going to use that to check how we can interact with Flutter. First thing that we have to do is, once that we create our environment, is, of course, I'm already lazy to create all the files. I was trying to check how we actually can use Android, package, whatever. I was like, there's not something like npm. Well, yes, we have something similar. If you run this into your Visual Studio Code, it's going to create all the structure that is related with Flutter. So you don't have to worry that much. So once that you create the structure, let's see basically which kind of things we can do with Firebase. There's another thing that is actually really cool that is called Cloud Functions. Basically, what we can do is combine a few things that are related with Firebase. In this case, Hamilton, what it's using is, for example, authentication, real-time database, and cloud storage, right? So with Cloud Functions, I can check these events. For example, with authentication, I can check when a new user is authenticated. With real-time database, I can actually check when a new data is in my database, or, for example, when I delete data. And with cloud storage, we're going to see how we can combine things like image and then put it in our app. Again, we have different ways to start using Flutter. If you never used Flutter before and you're still checking which kind of things you can do, I suggest to play around Flutter, at least to do prototypes. It's super simple to do. So you can start doing an app from scratch, right? Prototyping a new app idea, that's my favorite one. I've been already using this with people that is already Android developers, and when the time that we need to just get ideas, check which kind of things we need to do, develop quickly, we go with Flutter. And actually, if you already have an Android app, you can just add Flutter for that. Of course, you can put, the second thing is you can combine Flutter, as I mentioned before. And of course, besides that, combine with the other things that I like to get involved. In this case, if you check the other talk, there's a talk even that is going to combine Firebase with machine learning. So Firebase machine learning and Flutter is a part of Google Cloud, right? So basically, we can start combining all the things that we already know and start using this. In my case, OK, I've been using Google Cloud. That's good. I've been using material design. Feels like home. And then I've been using Firebase. OK, I'm pretty comfortable here. I can start using Flutter. So the one thing that we're going to check is Cloud Firestore. Cloud Firestore is a NoSQL database. It's different than a real-time database because Cloud Firestore is going to be related with documents and collections. So we're going to start using that to actually connect our app, right, to Flutter and then Firebase. Again, a few things that we have to keep in mind before make a decision. First of all, check if your app is going to scale. Android team here is going to be like, OK, you're not going to replace me, right? That's one thing. If, as I mentioned before, if it's something that is going to be short-term, is something simple that I can use, we can use it with Flutter. Third, that's my favorite, as I mentioned before, quickly prototyping. And fourth, this is something personal that I say. Flutter, I think it's a baby, but it's growing fast. So if you start checking the community and all the resources that are available, it's growing more and more. So keep in mind this framework, and then check which kind of things you can actually do, because I believe in the future it's going to be a big baby. And then, OK, let's see some code. Most of you, I'm hungry, me too. So first of all, if you ever use Firebase, you have to create a project in your console. That's one thing. Second, you have to check the requirements to start using Flutter. If you have Android Studio, you can already create, you need the Flutter plugin. And if you have Visual Studio, as me, you have to download the plugin and just use Flutter, create a new project. Before we start, let's see what is a widget. It's like a calendar, like a jQuery, like I used to do before. No, not that way. So we have different kinds of widgets. Most of the things are going to be widget. If I have a window, right, and then inside I have a frame, if I have a card, probably I will have a main widget that is going to be home, and then inside I'm going to have the card that is going to be another widget. So we have two different kinds of. The one that is stateless, right, that is going to be similar like a constant. It's not going to change. And the other one is going to be the stateful. Okay? The stateful, yes, we can change the state and start using the widget with, for example, Firebase. Second, that's the main thing that we have to do. With this line, we start already creating our app. We're going to have my app. My app is going to be our main widget, right? And we're going to start using Dart like this. And then, remember that we initialize my app with that. Second, we're going to create our main stateless widget. So basically, it's going to be our frame. In this case, I create a wireframe that basically it's going to have a title and then just a frame, OK? And then, of course, as you can see here, it's super simple, basically. It's not like, OK, I'm going to start learning Dart. This is like even darker than JavaScript. It's like super bizarre. No, for me, it was pretty simple. And as I mentioned before, if you play around with Visual Studio Code, most of the things are going to be even easier. It's like every widget has properties. So in this case, if you want to add a title, you can just put the title over there. And then in the other case, I have the home page that is going to have another title. So, and then if I want to do something else, I can extend this widget. And how I will connect with Flutter. So we have packages. Again, I've been using Node.js, so when I see this, it's like, OK, this is not that bad. It's pretty similar, right? So in this case, the one that we're going to use is Cloud Firestore. So for example, I have, in this case, this is the console that you're going to see in Firebase. I have a collection. The second thing that you have to do is create a collection, right? So in this case, I've been on the road like a few months. So what I did is, for example, create an app to vote which kind of places should I visit in each city. I mentioned this example because actually you can check the code lab, and it's available for you to do it. So I go to Firebase. I create a collection. In this case, I have two. The first one is baby. Then if you did the code lab before, you can actually see it. That's the one that I was using. And the other one, as you can see, is another collection that I can use for this app. In this case, it's going to be places. It's going to create a new collection The ID is going to be automatic because I just wanted to do it like that. And then each document is going to have a field and a value. So basically, I can use the property image. Even the URL that you can see over there is related with Firebase storage, right? So I can store my image over there. And then, for example, and then I have the name of the place and then the votes. And then how we can start interacting with Firebase. This is pretty simple. In this case, as I mentioned before, we're just going to use Firestore. But the same kind of thing with real-time database and, for example, storage. In this case, what we need to do is vote which kind of places we're going to check. So here I have the event on top, right? I need to check an instance of the document. And basically, every time that I tap, I'm going to update, and I'm going to use a transaction, a wait transaction. This is important, especially if you're going to use the real-time Firestore database, because it can have conflicts with the users if you're using at the same time. So with just one line, I'm already updating and changing my database. OK, this is the red screen. Basically, how it should look. If you can see this is available. This is available in my GitHub. This is available also in the code lab that you can check. Pretty simple. Just those lines of code. We can use the title, GDG Istanbul. If you want to keep adding more places, you can just create a new collection in the Firebase store, and then you're going to just start mode. And then we can actually share the same information and even more. We can still use in Firebase. For example, if I want to add a new image there, I can use the image that I have in my Firebase storage. Again, before we finish, this is just an introduction about Flutter and my experience changing from the dark side of JavaScript and trying to check how I can interact with Firebase, the things that I already know, and Flutter. I think that right now we are living in such a good time to be a developer, completely different than we were before. And there are a lot of tools outside. So my opinion is, try to be creative. Right now we can actually create this, which is, I don't know, 100 lines of code. So with this, I'm just saying, keep creating, OK? Right now, we have Flutter, Firebase, and of course, machine learning. And we can combine all these kind of things. And of course, after this dev fest, go home, keep coding. No, I'm kidding. Try to rest. And yeah, keep creating. So before we continue, a few highlights. That rocks, yes, it's super simple. But what about Kotlin? Which one should I use? Well, in my case, I found pretty simple both. But it's not going to replace this, like Kotlin is not going to replace Dart or whatever. You have to check which one you feel more comfortable. Of course, Kotlin, you're going to use it with Android native. For me, it was a smooth journey. I was pretty happy to start working with mobile development, OK? And then, of course, it's like widgets and objects everywhere. If you already work with C# and things like bizarre like that, you're going to feel pretty familiar working with Dart. Second, this developer community is great. Flutter team is all around. In fact, I feel that here you have a lot of workshops around Flutter. Try to check the community and start playing around. And of course, combine and play around Flutter. That one is just a super simple way to start interacting with Firebase and Flutter. And then that's it. Thank you. And I'm ready for your questions. We still have time for Q&A? OK, cool. So yes, if you feel to bring some questions, especially about Firebase, Flutter, raise your hand. And I can bring water.
Hello.
Hi. I will try to see. Where is it? Okay.
Okay.
I need my glasses too, so.
How,
Okay, oh wow, yeah.
How about package size? Flutter, in Flutter.
Yeah, when you, do you mean when you need to install stuff or package?
Yok, no, store package
Ah,
size.
a store package size.
Yeah.
But what do you mean? I don't get it.
It's bigger than
Ah,
native.
compared to native. No. Yeah, that's one thing. Like you have to check it out. It's not the same. It's not the same. And there are things that is still not performance comparing. Especially, I mean, I'm talking especially about Android, iOS. Not sure because I didn't use it before. Yeah. But it's like that. Android is always is Android. It's still better than Flutter. So if you have in mind performance or storage, right? I will suggest keep using Android native in this case.
Thank you.
I want to ask, what's the problem regarding the scaling side? You said if your app needs scaling, then don't use it?
I don't say don't use it, but it's, again, in terms of performance and storage, it's the same thing. It's still also in beta most of the time. So one of the things that is actually easy to use is prototyping, because especially if you need to fix a bug or something, it's not that hard. But in terms of performance, let's say that if you have a bug related with data, information, that's other thing. The community, especially about Android, is already something that you can check, and you know that it's going to be there. But with Flutter, the community is still growing. So one of the things that I'm not sure to use it in production if my app is going to be big or scale is in the way to fix problems quickly. So that's why scalability is something that you have to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you.
He's doing exercise. Okay, we have one more.
Hello, hi. Welcome to Istanbul.
Oh, thank you.
The first question is, I have two. First one is the deployment. Let's say you prepared your package, everything's ready to go, and you want to put it on the store, let's say App Store. What's the deployment process? What does it go like?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Android. In my case, I didn't go to production to put it on App Store because of this. What I did is combine, especially, something that is already in production and then with Android. But the process is similar, especially because it's related with Google now. So
I don't quite understand. So let's say I developed the application. Let's say it's iOS.
yeah,
And then the package is ready.
yeah.
So now I need to deploy it to. Okay, so here's my question: does GCP provide tools to deploy your application directly into stores?
Yeah, it's the process with Android is the same. Like you put all the package together and the methods are the same that you're using before. So in my case, I've been already integrating, not using that in production. So I'm not sure if it's actually 100% the same, but it should be in the same package as Android.
Okay, thank you. The second question is real quick. Does Dart provide Dart provides the ability to interact with the native API functionalities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that's one of the things that you can actually start doing now. If you have a native Android or iOS app, at least add something that is related with Flutter, you can do it.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? No, we're fine. We're fine. Okay, thank you. I'm going to be around if you have questions, especially about Firebase, Flutter, or even Google Assistant. Whatever you feel free to come. Thank you.